What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala. Today is another special episode.
Yeah, we've just been racking it up.
Racking it up. Alternating between the current affairs, which is just Terrence and I, and our special episodes with special people.
Yes. And
today we have someone who does a lot of stuff. He's a radio DJ. He's a musician. He's a great interviewer based on his YouTube videos.
Yes.
He's a YouTuber. He is a multi-hyphenate. Did I say that correctly? Hyphenate? Multi-hyphenate? No?
Yes, multi-hyphenate.
Multi-hyphenate,
right,
yes.
yeah.
And he's also quite a prominent figure in the queer community in Singapore. So, and we would like to welcome Mr. Joshua Simon.
Hey, thank you so much.
What's up, man?
Yeah.
For having me. This is I'm not sure if everyone knows the setup. This is immaculate. There's where we've got like a Isn't this sort of like
Hospital.
a partition
Yes,
for the
hospital screen.
Yeah, hospital screen. Yeah, so we mix things up, right? We mix things up.
Yeah, we're in an indoor room with a tent as well.
Yes.
It's like opening an umbrella indoor.
Exactly. It's an outdoor tent used indoors.
And I'm looking at you and there's a half naked version of you as well right behind you.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Correct. That's true. Half naked,
with like a S&M device.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's how we roll. So we are multi-hyphenates as well. Just in very different ways.
In different ways. But
Different
I
ways.
mean, if Joshua's voice sounds familiar, it's because you probably have heard it somewhere on radio before.
Somewhere on radio,
Somewhere
yeah.
on radio.
Somewhere on radio, somewhere on Spotify.
A very soothing voice that helps, in a good way, helps people calm down and, ease
You're going to
up
say
for
go
the
to
night.
sleep, is it?
No, yeah, that's what people always say to me. Your voice makes me go to sleep. Then I'm like, I'm not sure if that's a compliment.
Terrence, we're meeting Joshua face to face for the first time, no? No, not
Do you
first
ever
time.
get that? Do you ever get that?
Well, I mean, like I think that of both of you, because you guys have a very nice deep voice,
Yeah,
I wanted that for a very long time, So like when I was in the army, I was doing this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was Corporal JJ Simon. Yeah, but I can't keep it up.
Yeah.
And like I think it was like at 13 or 14 when our voices started to break. Right?
Yeah.
And then everyone's voice started getting deeper, and it was kind of cool. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, Jun Jie's voice suddenly very deep. And then I'll be like, hi guys. So like I would try to pretend to go to school, like, hey guys, today my voice broke. But then by like canteen, like 10, 15, like recess, I'll be like,
So then in army, how? You had to...
it was on and off. I would try to like kind of mask it for a while, and then
Were you in the music and drama company?
I was not.
Oh, you were not?
Yeah, I was in the film unit. So I studied
the
film,
unit.
which was incredible. So I did a lot of video edits, like corporate videos and stuff.
That's pretty crazy because most of the time when we talk to artists and all, a lot of them went through the music and drama company, right? So to me, it feels like it's almost like a rite of passage for artists in Singapore.
Yeah.
So for someone to go through another route and then still become an artist, it's quite interesting.
Yeah, I had a very traumatic experience with MDC.
Oh, really?
Because knowing exactly what you said, which is that rite of passage, right?
Yeah.
And NS is terrifying for someone like me with like my personality and everything, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, I have to get into MDC. So I actually auditioned before even my health checkup.
Oh, really?
Just to like try to get one foot through the door, right? And I aced that audition. And I was like, okay, great, but you have to get your PES status first before we can even arrange everything, right? So come back and audition again, right?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, no problem. So I got my PES status, okay, and then I went back, and when I did the audition, I was at that point I was dancing a lot, and I was trying to practice doing a split, right? And I was wearing socks. So when we were stretching, I was wearing socks, and then I slipped, and I went down to a full split. And I felt this like feeling like
the groin.
a internal kind of
Snapping.
like a squishy snap.
Yeah.
Like a squishy snap, you know? And I managed to get up, but my legs were wobbly. So I actually like tore my ligament.
Oh, shit.
And I auditioned anyway.
This
and
was while you were warming up. While you were
we
warming
were
up.
warming up to learn the counts of 8 for the dance part of the audition, right?
Yeah.
So I completely was terrible at that.
Yeah.
And I didn't get into MDC.
Okay.
And I was, because it was my second audition already, so I was telling everyone coming here, guys, it's going to be totally fine. I've done it before. We're all going to be in this game. We're all going to get in. Yeah. And I didn't get in.
Oh,
So I was crushed. And I just felt really embarrassed as well, because like all my peers who are, gunning for that role in life where you want to, chase your dreams. I was like, oh, I didn't make it. But then I ended up in film, which I didn't know existed.
Yep.
Right. We do like internal stuff. So we do like the army corporate videos and everything. And it was incredible. I learned so much from being in the film unit.
I'm sure I watched something that you probably edited, like some IPVT.
While we were being brainwashed, is it?
Yeah. So, while you're sitting there and then they tell you about safety precautions before your IPVT and stuff like that. But actually, just interesting to go back a little bit, because I mean, I think you've been around the entertainment industry in Singapore for at least a good decade or something, right?
Yeah, a little bit more. Yeah.
So when do you? When's the anniversary? Like when was year zero?
Oh gosh, I don't know, man. Honestly, like I've loved the stage since I was a child.
Okay.
I remember we had this. I went to kindergarten. It's like a PAP kindergarten.
Okay.
And we had a talent contest or something, and then I was the host for that. And I was a child. This is like pre-primary school, right?
Yeah.
If you're in PAP. And I remember getting the script, memorizing, like, up next, we have this person performing this song. And I thought I wouldn't do it right. But then once I got on stage, just the adrenaline that you feel, the electricity, and somehow everything just clicks. And then you start entertaining the crowd and you start cracking jokes. And I started talking about my parents, on stage. And I was like, I'm loving this. And then I had a very interesting brought up as well, where a big chunk of my life, I was not introduced to like film or TV or radio. Everything was sort of from the church.
Okay.
So later on in primary school, when I started rebelling and I started discovering Michael Jackson and Whitney and Mariah and all the greats I was not exposed to
This
before.
was the 90s, right?
This is in the 90s.
Yeah.
Then I was a really fat kid as well. So anytime we would go to the mall and they would go to like the clothing store, whatever, I would go to the movie shop. And then I would memorize all the titles and all the artist names and everything. So I started being just obsessed with pop culture.
Yeah.
And I just took it as this is the world that I need to be a part of.
Got it.
So I can't think of when it started, the sort of fascination, that hunger to be a part of that world. But I think it was very, very early on. Very, very early on.
So when you went to army, you wanted to be a performer. But when you went to film, it was almost like behind the scenes after the recording,
Yeah, I think even with film, it was a tricky thing because I remember in secondary school, I already liked to sing. I liked to dance. And I thought, okay, I have to be like Michael to sing and dance, right?
Yep.
And a lot of the artists were also doing film. So I have to act as well. And I loved watching movies. And I started writing because I would go and audition for roles. And a lot of it were Chinese speaking roles, but I wouldn't get it because I don't look Chinese. Even if I can say the lines, there's no reason for me to be in Liu Xing Hua Yuan, So I wouldn't get that role. So I started, okay, I'm going to start writing roles for myself. And I went to Neon, studied film because I'm going to start directing films and put someone like me in there. And then I ended up falling in love with things like editing and YouTube started popping up at that time as well. I started writing my own music. So everything kind of just all happened together. At the same time, and I found myself just loving a little bit of everything. Yeah.
So just to understand the context of your world, your ethnicity, you're mixed, right?
Yeah.
And
Dad's Indian, mom's Chinese.
I see. Okay. And just now when you said growing up, you got a lot of your new info through the church.
Yeah.
So that was you grew up in a very religious household.
Yeah, my dad is a pastor at a Bible Presbyterian church.
Oh, I see.
So it's very, very fixated on the Old Testament. Guitars without electricity because that's how the devil gets in. We use the piano and the organ. It's a lot of hymns, right? So when you sing a song, you stand up and you hold the hymn booklet and then you go through stanza after stanza. So that was my life. And we had a church library that had like Veggie Tales and all the shows that I watched as a child were like the different books of the Bible.
Got it.
So today is Job, and then today, so it's like it's Acts and all that, Revelation. So that's all the stuff that I was getting. Music was from that.
Yeah.
It's not even like Hillsong, it's like really like chamber music kind. But then I had a badass uncle who was already rebelling because my uncle is very different from my dad. And he would have like laser discs, and like he would like introduce me to everything. So that's how I was like, why am I not exposed to all this? So I started rebelling and I started hanging out more with my uncle.
Yeah.
And then he would buy me CDs, you know.
And that was at what age?
That was in primary school. It must have been primary school, secondary school, that period. Primary school was the most fun because that was when I was, anytime there was like a birthday or anything, I would just call my auntie and it came, can you get me the J-Lo album? Yeah, the Jennifer Lopez album. Give me Janet Jackson, Kylie Minogue.
So there was people will pass cassettes and Walkman. No, the Discman.
CDs.
Discman.
Yeah, I had a Discman. And
Discman.
so I was just obsessed with it. And I used to like burn
Yeah.
CDs as well. I used to make mixtapes for like my friends.
Yeah. So at what age? Because I know before the podcast you were telling me that your music ties in a lot with your identity as an individual and your sexuality and all. So growing up, at what point did you realize your sexuality?
Okay, so sexuality for me has always been a very tricky thing. It was definitely a journey. I mean, I won't speak on behalf and say sort of my experiences is, it may be similar, but I wouldn't say it's sort of the template for how it's for a lot of people, because there was a period where I was attracted to women, where I did find women attractive, and I could be sexually aroused by sort of the thought of a woman. And but then I also kind of realized, I think around 15 or 16, this is secondary school, right? Where when I realized that a lot of the women that I was lusting over were a particular type of women, whereas, okay, so how do I explain this? It was the big tits, blonde. It was Pamela Anderson, Baywatch, because she was like the biggest star. And it was Trish Stratus from WWF.
Yep.
You know, and when it came to crushing on the girl in class, it was the girl that every guy was chasing after. And I barely knew the girl, but I just liked her because that was what all the guys wanted, right? So I started realizing, like, I started questioning things about myself, like how much of it is because I actually like this girl and want to be with her? How much of it is just because I want to be part of the boys? I feel so weird and disconnected from everyone else, and I just want a friend, and actually, you know, I just want to get the girl, and it's more of a trophy or to show everyone that I'm part of your gang, you know, I'm part of the APEC, you know? And so it was, I started questioning these things, and I also started to realize that I liked spending a lot of time with how do I put it? Like I had a couple of guy friends that I started like crushing on a little bit, and I started like feeling more comfortable being myself with them. I started feeling like I connected better with them. And my first couple of sort of sexual experiences happened around that time as well, where it was like, what just happened? Was it like, you know, so it was very, very confusing for me. And we at that time, the early 2000s, we didn't get a lot of representation. Whereas for today, it's definitely much easier. You know, if I was 15 years old today, I can find a way to bypass the Netflix parental rule, you know, and find something for myself. Because Glee came out when I was in like poly, like 17, 18 years old. And that was already groundbreaking, that Kurt character, right? But before that, there were already so many great shows. It's just that it couldn't enter Singapore. Where I remember some of the earlier seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race, I had to smuggle it in through from JB. We used to buy a lot of pirated CDs, right? So I would buy like RuPaul's Drag Race and then take the disc out and then put it into like the X-Men 2 United, and like put it in the slip and then bring it back to Singapore. I remember doing that for Brokeback Mountain. And that was like already like, oh my gosh, I'm watching a gay film, you know? And it seemed to be critically acclaimed that year, right? So it was a journey for me to learn to understand what I was feeling sexually, and also when it came to sort of intimacy and to who I am, and it's a long process, but it began around when I was like 15 or 16, I think.
I see.
And had you already been like, how did music help you with that, or how did, because that start, I'm assuming your identity was starting to take shape, but you were always interested in the creative field. So how did that, what was that relationship like?
So I mentioned this on there's a podcast that I host. It's like a queer podcast. It's called the SG Boys, right? And one of the things that I reflected on and shared was that I was told the word gay. Like I was called gay before I even knew what my sexuality was.
Yeah.
You know, I remember I was a kid, primary school, and there was Bug's Life on TV. And there was this ladybug character who looked so fabulous, but then the voice is really deep, right? And then my family friends say, oh, that is a gay. That's a gay. So I'm like, oh, I thought, so a gay is feminine presenting deep voice. So that was what I thought it was. And then I thought, after that, oh, gay men are guys who cannot get girls. And that's why they sleep with their own gender, you know? Or then you hear things about like prison and stuff like that. Oh, so that's the only time someone is gay, you know, when they don't have women. So it was all these warped perceptions of what a gay person is for a very long time. And then when I was in secondary school, my PE teacher shared with me that he was gay and he had a boyfriend, and that completely blew my mind because he was like, I love this man. And I'm like, but you're so handsome. You can get any girl that you want. Why are you with a guy? And he's like, I'm gay and I love my partner.
Was he open about it?
He was open about it to me, which I know was a huge risk.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if he's kind of like could tell, you know, and he was just, I know it must have been really scary when he thought about it back and forth, but that completely changed everything for me because I'd never seen someone who is so handsome and everyone all thought he was very handsome. And we were trying to think of, oh, we should pair him up with our English teacher and all that. And he just straight up just says, I'm gay. You know, and that took balls for him to say that in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
But he revealed that to you?
He revealed that to me.
Like in what kind of setting?
On
like,
MSN.
Oh, MSN. I was like, oh, how
Because we were like
a bit of PE.
We were, by the way, guys, not sure if you can tell. Okay. No. And he's also sort of very masculine presenting as well. So it was just all these... I just never experienced that. So we were on MSN and all of us were doing that in secondary school, pair our teachers up with everyone, you know? So I was probably trying to say, oh, you should hang out with Miss Young and all that. And he was just like, no. And boundaries as someone should, if they're in a relationship, like, I'm gay, this is who I am. Yeah. And he had the balls to do that. And that completely changed everything for me. And I was called Aqua and all that because I joined choir, because I joined dance. It had nothing to do with my sexuality, you know? So when I started feeling these feelings, or when I had my first sort of sexual experience, the first thing I felt was shame. It was fear. I went to church immediately that next morning, asked everyone to put their hands on my head and pray for me. I don't want to be gay, because I also didn't understand what gay was, right? I thought gay means I'm going to be bullied. Everyone's going to start calling me Aqua and I cannot defend myself because I am an Aqua now. I'm a bapo. All these horrible, hurtful things that they would say to me to make fun of me, I am now all these things, so I cannot be gay. Or they're going to kick me out of the house. I've heard about that. So I don't want any of these things. It had nothing to do with this is how I feel and it's pure and it's beautiful. Just like the same way a straight person would feel if they have a crush on a girl, or they hold someone's hand. It's supposed to feel exciting. A lot of us in the queer community, that first feeling is shame and fear, you know? And then I spend like the next part of my life trying to unpack a lot of things and learn how to behave, learn how to treat other people with respect, learn how to treat myself with respect, learn to fight for myself, to not feel so afraid. So that's where a lot of that comes from, you know? And art has been, it has just been this sort of recurring thing where, like I would listen to Madonna and I'll listen to Mariah Carey and everyone would be like, that's damn gay. I would listen to Spice Girls over Backstreet Boys and I'd be, that's damn gay. It's like I would choose Chun-Li and not Ryu and they'd be like, that's gay. Kitana over Liu Kang, not Scorpion. You know, like I would choose all these things that would not be sort of the norm for a guy and be then met with, are you gay? Or your voice is feminine. Are you gay? So I had to learn to, over time, own all these things. So like, yeah, I'm going to use katana and whoop your ass. You know, like I'm going to sing and dance and do whatever I love. And I think it was Born This Way for that Lady Gaga album. That was when I was in poly already. When she released Born This Way, and then Glee was out, and then we had Modern Family starting to come up. We started having more representation. People started watching all these shows where it didn't become the niche thing anymore. And RuPaul's Drag Race also over time became bigger and bigger and bigger. I started owning owning it and
Yeah.
just having a blast and just dressing up when I wanted to dress up. And I wasn't the only one. There were so many people who are queer, and they started like dressing up wacky and freaking people out with their outfits and owning the freak in them during that period, that era as well.
Sorry, just to go back a little bit.
Sure.
Your school, was it an all boys school or was it a mixed school?
Yeah, I went to mixed school all the way, neighborhood school.
I mean, this is a lot of this is very interesting, but it's also, I mean, we both went to the same boys' school.
Which school is that?
RI, yeah, basically, yeah. No, we don't mean it in that way. I was just gonna.
Are you aware that like RI is RI?
Yeah.
So like when
RI
you
is
say,
RI.
is there
I
a
know,
level of
yeah.
like, you know, it's like I live in a bungalow.
There's
No, there is.
right because there's a lot of preconceived notions that people have about
in my mind I was like, oh, Josh, don't ask which school we went to. Josh, don't ask which
And you
school.
can't run away from it
You can't
because
run
even
away
if you
from
say
it,
I'm from ACS, everyone will have like,
exactly.
ACS.
So, but then like it's not a monolithic thing, right? There are people. It's a spectrum. Like Haresh was a jock.
I was a
wasn't.
jock. I
wasn't a jock. Like I also enjoyed like a lot of the artsy stuff, like singing and performing and stuff like
Nice.
that. I don't know if you did lah.
I mean, so when Terrence says I was a jock, I mean, I
He
played
was
sports
mean-
lah. Sports was
mean-
my
mean
life.
girls.
Okay.
Shut up, Terrence. I'm talking. But there were certain things that the sportsmen used to do about how this table is only for guys, no girls can sit here and all. And I look back, I'm like, oh shit! And I like that was the world I was living in.
Yeah.
Like.
But did that shape how you thought about the gay people and everything?
I think the like gay people was so far out of my, actually there were people in my school, in my batch, that people used to say, oh, a bit gay, a bit aqua and all that. And yeah, that totally did shape it. But I don't know whether it's just that jock culture or generally the entire class culture. Because back then it was still taboo lah.
Late 90s,
right? It was still taboo, but I would say being in that circle, I was like, oh, we are the men, people in drama and all, we are the men. And I look back and I'm like, oh shit, that was I'm glad along the way I've been exposed or like and just even the times have evolved also lah. But looking back, jock.
Recovering homophobe.
Fuck you lah. So this is also the problem in media. People take one thing and they extrapolate and like, oh, because that was my state of mind, I probably went to being a homophobe and come back.
I 100% agree. I think you probably said a lot of things that were hurtful, or you watched other people, you heard a lot of people say a lot of things hurtful, and that was a period of time of where you were then. I don't think it. I mean, I'm glad that you've grown, and we all continue to grow, right? But I think it's also giving each other some space, some grace to understand the situation.
But is that really possible when we're talking about like primary school kids and all? I know between adults and even when you're 15 or 16, you can actually talk some sense into people. You shouldn't say things about them. But like kids, like do you think like kids today have it? They have it any easier?
Oh, I think we underestimate kids. I think when we were kids, we didn't know we were kids, and we had thoughts and we had opinions, but we were constantly told that we were not smart enough to understand. I genuinely think that kids can be really bright and really intelligent and very, very creative as well. And I like when I think of your sort of situation with being one of the boys, and you learn the culture based on how it is everywhere else, right? And because you guys are a certain way, and if you're praised as a certain way, like, oh, you guys are so tough and you guys are winning stuff for the school, you guys are prized and important, then anyone who is not like you guys then becomes lesser than. And to make yourself feel even taller, you make them feel a bit shorter. So I understand that, and I think a lot of me learning about life and trying not to hold a grudge against someone like you. Like you probably would have bullied me, if I was in school with you.
I mean, fuck,
bully the two of us.
Okay, first of all,
we would be hanging at the computer lab, you and I.
Totally.
I wanted to say,
games.
Just how Terrence was saying, that was interesting. I came from a school and all that, but he never got to his point. His whole point of that was just to label me as a jock.
No, because I think I just wanted to understand, like, how do you view, like people back then, who said negative
Yeah, because I
things
used to like I would meet someone like you, and you would say things like that, right? And I'd be like, oh, I hate you, or like you made my secondary school life hell, when you didn't do shit, right? Maybe you did it for someone else, but you didn't actually do anything to me, right? But you represent this type of person, and I've learned to sort of like untangle all that and be like, what created this person, right? What created this person to say what he said then?
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of people who, over time, I've watched their journey on Facebook and Instagram, and they've ended up championing a lot of these causes. One person went to fashion school. I'm not saying whether or not he's queer or not, but I just would never have expected that from the basketball guy.
Sure.
He used to pick on me for being feminine, and he's in fashion school. Like, a part of me is like, oh, maybe he was closeted, or maybe he was still figuring himself out. But I'm only happy for I've never kind of crossed paths with him ever again. But I was like, when I saw that on Facebook, oh, that was kind of cool. So I've learned to let go a lot of these things, because it's really not healthy. Otherwise, you spend so much of your life talking about bullying. Because I mean, up till when I was like 23, 24, I was still writing on Facebook about, oh no, bullying was really tough. It completely messed me up and everything. And I blamed them. And it was tough, but I'm also learning to not harbor that kind of hate at them, because while I did say that kids are very smart, also kids are very, very impressionable. So they, not only to the teachers, but the people around them as well.
Yeah.
And it's kind of tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you feel a sense of do you feel that sense of forgiveness for older generations of people who live in Singapore today, who still cling on to rather outdated beliefs, even though everything points otherwise?
Well, there isn't anything to forgive if they're not kind of apologetic, or if they're reaching that point of, I understand and I kind of want to seek your forgiveness, right? But on my own, I just try to understand what created this person, right? So I have been, for the past year and a half, been listening to voices that wouldn't be very popular based on my belief set, like listening to people like Candace Owens or Ben Shapiro.
We're talking about right-wingers, conservative commentators.
Yeah, and Caitlin Bennett, where all of these people would be like, why, how dare you, why are you, they're so gross, they're so homophobic, all this and that. They've said so many like problematic things. Like they say problematic things to you, but they also have a following that agree with them.
Yeah.
And I want to understand what their perspective is, right? Because as a gamer, you're a gamer, right? I kind of assume that you're a gamer. I just could see you gaming. I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
What kind of gamer are you? Like a PC gamer or console gamer?
Console, yeah.
Can you high five me? You're not like a Mobile Legends.
No, mobile.
You're like a proper
console,
like AAA games.
Yeah, AAA games.
You're my guy.
Can I just say, for a podcast that's talking about no labels and no judgment, you just label me a jock, you just label him a gamer. But I guess that's part of human nature to a certain extent.
Oh yeah, right? For sure. Yeah. It's a very lazy thing to do, but we're very lazy people, and sometimes I mean,
and I think like what you said about understanding people who disagree with you, I think sometimes there's a bit too much focus on this utopian ideal that everybody will get along, nobody will be bigoted, nobody will be discriminatory, nobody will be kind of like lazy in thinking. But that's who humans are, and I think it's very important that everybody understands that lah.
But so what caused that change? You said around 23, you were still writing about online bullies and people like that. What caused you to just decide to?
The change was recent. I feel like only in the past couple of years have I started to understand myself and learn to just let go a lot of things. Only in the past couple of years, like 3 years. Okay. 3 or 4 years, I would say.
Was it related to that particular viral incident?
Yeah.
About the...
A little bit, yeah.
Can we, Harish, let's give us the rundown.
So I know like we covered this on a podcast previously. Yes. I will bring up the podcast number in a bit. But from what I recall, you were slated to give a TEDx talk.
Yeah.
Right. At which institution?
This is at Singapore Poly.
And on the day of
The night before.
The night before. They told you, after they had seen your planned talking points, they told you to leave out the stuff that relates to the queer community or LGBT issues. And then you decided to pull out from the whole conference because you didn't want to kind of water down what you wanted to say.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying that you didn't want that to set a precedent for future speakers. Right? So what about that? I know it went quite viral. It was quite talked about. We talked about it on the podcast.
Yeah.
But what was going through your mind when that whole thing happened, and how did it shape, like what you just said, like that change?
I didn't see it coming, but I also kind of saw it coming. It's a very strange, kind of weird place to be in. So just to give it a little bit of context, right? So I had a big breakup the year before, but for me at that point, it was the lowest low of my life, right? Because I had met someone, fallen in love, wildly in love, and after being single for so long, you meet someone who completely sweeps you off your feet. You're just like, oh, this is finally here. But it was also linked to a lot of my insecurities where I thought I was going to be lonely forever, or I thought I cannot get this kind of person. I thought I had such low self-esteem and value for myself as well. So a lot was riding onto this relationship for it to work. And then when it ended abruptly, it completely shattered me. And I was struggling with my mental health at that time as well, with suicidal ideation, with PTSD, with anxiety, like a series of things. And I was on this journey of working on myself as a response to that. It wasn't like, I'm going to start doing yoga. It was, I'm on the floor, I'm crying, I need something to shut my brain off. So I start typing what I'm feeling on Google, and then like a TED Talk comes out. So I started watching all these TED Talks, and Brene Brown, I started like listening to them and on long walks, and it would inspire me. And I thought, someday maybe I'll do a TED Talk about all the things that I've learned, and I would journal everything. And then I got asked to do a TED Talk, right? So I was sharing what I was feeling and experiencing and reflecting on very openly on social media. And there was a student from Singapore Poly who saw that and knew what I was talking about and said, we would love for you to do a TEDx because we're actually organizing one. So I thought, oh my goodness, I have always wanted to do it. And now I guess it's time. And if I can do it, maybe I'll convince myself that I'm okay now. Sometimes you need that climb. Once you're at that summit, you're like, I actually kind of did it. I need to photograph this moment. So I was like, okay, I have to do it. So I spent time writing the script. I knew what it was going to be about, because that day, that breakup was also linked to me coming out to my family, but in a way that I did not expect. So what happened was, the day that breakup happened, I also found out that there was someone who was blackmailing my family, trying to get my dad to not run to be the head pastor of the church. So he wrote a letter to my dad and all the elders to say that your son is gay or not fit, because you cannot even take care of your own family. There's no way you can take care of this church. So that's how my dad found out that I'm gay, and my mom, and my relatives, because everyone will tell everyone. So all that happened on the same day as my breakup. So it completely just fucked with my mind, right? So I wanted to share where I was a year prior and all the things that I've learned, and that growth and that relationship that I now have with myself and the people around me. And I did the rehearsal the week prior at Singapore Poly, right? I had my script, but I was constantly reworking. I was constantly like, should I put this in? Should I not? And you have to memorize all that, by the way. I'm not sure if you know it. You have to memorize your TED Talk. And
there's no teleprompter.
I thought we like, because some people, they use the cards, but then my thing is that like, and I have that with microphones as well, my hand will start shaking. So even though I'm super confident, like, hey everyone, but I'm like that, right? So I don't want a case of me doing this while I'm reading. So I was like, I have to memorize. So I did like a rehearsal the week prior. They liked it. But then the night before, they asked for the script. And the moment they asked for the script, having done radio for 10 years and kind of knowing what the boundaries are when it comes to mainstream media platforms, I was like, I know this is what's going on. So I didn't expect it, because I thought that, TEDx is something that was not part of this whole red tape thing, where I can feel comfortable and I can share all these things. Because I didn't even share all this on Instagram. I didn't even share what was going on with my family on Instagram, right? But I thought TEDx, even if all this were to come out and my dad hears about it, or the people in the church hear about it, there's a level of respect where, he did it at a TEDx. It wasn't just a Facebook post. So I think we'll understand. So I didn't expect that to happen for the TEDx talk, but I also expected that having done media for the past 10 plus years, I know this is what's going to happen. So I sent the script and then I texted my friend, let's go for a red wine. I have a feeling I kind of know how this is going to go. And then they called me, the students called me and they said that, is there any way you can take out the whole front part about the coming out story with your parents and the breakup with the boyfriend? Can you say it's a girlfriend? I was like, I can't do that. Like, okay, like first of all, there is the...
Sorry, these were students who were
Yeah, so it's a student organized TEDx, right? And so they asked if these were the areas that the teachers pointed out that won't work on stage, right? So can you alter it? So I said, like, there's one layer is I've wanted to do this because I thought this was me finally doing the TED Talk after listening to TED Talks, right?
Yeah.
I don't want my first TED Talk to be like this.
Yeah.
You know, to remember it like that. And number two was, how's this series about like embracing your true self when I can't like be myself and I have to lie about all these things?
Yeah.
And worse still, tell everyone that life is awesome without showing you how shitty it was, where there were times where I couldn't get out of bed and like I'm able to stand and do this talk right now because there were so many times I had to like pull myself out of bed, right? So if I can't show you that part, I'm not going to show you how life can be awesome. You know, you have to go through the bullshit. And they were like, can you not maybe talk about the celebrities you've interviewed? And I'm like, you know, and I'm just like, I'm not going to do that because I can do that everywhere else, you know, like, and this is not what I want to do this TED Talk about. So I said, I'm going to have to pull out if you can't let me do the TED Talk that I've written. And you heard it, you know, and the students knew, like they were there, they heard the
But who was
talk.
pressuring the students?
So it was the teachers based on what I heard from the situation, right? And it couldn't have been the students because I was approached by the students
So when the
who
students
knew what was happening, who knew what this whole TEDx was about when they asked me to talk about this thing. They heard the story. They had coffee sessions with me where I told them everything that I was going through. So they knew everything. So it wouldn't have been the students. And they heard a rehearsal the week before.
Oh shit.
Right? And when I pulled out and then I performed at Pink Dot that night and I announced to everyone that I was supposed to do this TEDx today and this is what happened, and then it became this big viral story. A lot of the articles that came out after that was on what Singapore Poly said in response to everything, which was that it was the sort of the students who felt it was a bit uncomfortable, the teachers didn't really have a say in all that. And then I was just like,
They threw the students under the bus.
and I didn't retaliate because these are still students who still have to graduate and they're not gonna win this fight if I start going in and be like, no, actually the students were calling me on the phone saying this is what they're pressured to do, but they can't do anything. But then on sort of the papers, I remember there was that Mothership article where it was sort of, actually there was the students who were not uncomfortable. That's not true. They hired me. They wanted me to do this thing. You know, they sat with me and so there's no way, but I was like, there's no way I can respond to this. And then I kept going back to this one line from Loving What Is by Byron Katie. And she was like, defense is sort of the first action to war. Where like the moment you start defending yourself, you're going into straight out war with these people. And I just knew that, okay, I'm going to practice just not speaking anymore because I just can't, right? Because if I start going in, this whole thing which was supposed to be a beautiful memory, you doing a TEDx, is going to turn into something really ugly and I'm going to remember it like that. So it was only that point that I broke down where I started like feeling and I started crying because I was just like, I didn't think it would take more work. You know, I just thought it would be like, I did the work already. I did the healing, you know, I'm in a place now where I can like publicly like stand up and talk. And then now it's like, I still have to go through that. So I was in a really raw state at that point. And then after that, when I just started pulling away for a while and I spent more time with myself, that's when I felt like ever since that period, I feel like I've grown. I feel like I'm a lot more conscious about what I experience. I'm a lot more understanding with people. I want to hear different sides. And I brought up the whole gamer thing just now because we as gamers know that if you want to fight a monster, you have to understand the monster, right? Especially if you're a Dark Soulsborne person. You need to study the monster's moves, right? So how I've learn to do that is to hear all sides and be a little bit more understanding with how everyone is going through and try to understand what created this situation. So even with this TEDx thing, what created this system in place? Because if you actually look at sort of Section 377A that criminalizes sex between men, which is what we're repealing against here in Singapore, in public or in private, gross indecent act, right? None of it sort of says anything about like discussions on gender identity, or it doesn't actually directly affect, say, lesbians or trans people, right? Why? So it's just the act itself, but then there are all these trickle down effects, this gray area that queer people then exist in, where there are no positive portrayals of LGBTQ plus people on media, where if a film like Love, Simon, which is a PG-13 film in America, is R21 here with no sex scenes whatsoever, one kiss, right? It's R21, and magazines, newspapers, TV close their marketing doors to you because it's an R21 film that they're promoting to a general public, which is supposed to be all G or PG content. We're pretty much being scratched out. You know, or if you look at the Our Boys to Men poster and there's one guy doing this at the far left, you know, where he's okay to be a bit more flamboyant and to be sort of the jester, the joke, if it's on us, but we cannot hold hands with another person. We can't be human that way. We can't express how we feel, even though it doesn't actually break that Section 377A law, but there are no positive portrayals, or how sort of like drag culture has been appropriated through when you think of Liang Ximei, Liang Po Po and all that, or some of the early representations of drag on TV, but none of it is kind of attributed or goes back to the community, or we will have actual drag queens on TV. So it's a lot of these things that I started sort of noticing and feeling and being a lot more conscious about. And there are many times where I feel that fury, that anger in me, and it's at that time where I need to like and be like, what created this?
So you still feel that?
All the time. All the time. I think even with, and this is just sort of with sexuality, right? I mean, we had that discussion recently with another bout of that racism thing in Singapore, right? And even when all that stuff happened a couple of months ago,
it's almost you have to be more specific which racial event happens so often nowadays. Is like,
and chances are it's happened a lot, right? And it's just that people feel like they get a better sense of justice when it's on social media compared to, say, calling the police, right? Because then now it's like a proper discussion because of that viral video, compared to, say, how would it have happened if say they went to the police, what would have happened, right? Would we have had this discussion? Would we have known about it even, right? But it's exhausting, right? Especially if you're a brown person and you hear these things and you have talked about it before, it's very exhausting to like get back into that conversation. So sometimes I'm in that place. Sometimes I'm in that place where it's very, very exhausting because you don't know where that light at the end of the tunnel, when is it going to reach you?
But so, okay, so, you know, like, right now, if it almost feels like, let's say for issues of race, right? The internet where a lot of this discussion happens is so polarized sometimes it feels like whenever this kind of thing happens, we come out of it worse off. Like you get the camp, both camps become stronger. You get the conservatives and the liberals become stronger. Do you feel that in, say, for LGBTQ plus matters, like because I've also heard anecdotally that when those issues were not at the forefront of society, people from that community could lead quiet lives. But now it's almost like every time something like that comes up, it goes down almost the same life cycle. People are getting more polarized, and you said yourself, you know, it feels exhausting. Do you feel that, like, oh, maybe now it's too much at the front and center? It would be nice if we could just lead quiet lives. Or do you think it is part and parcel of the process of society evolving to a point where there can be some sort of, how you say, harmony?
Well, I mean, if the bacteria is in the food, the bacteria is in the food, whether or not you're hungry or you're full or what, right? So I think when, in the case of these areas of injustice, it's yes, there are times where you feel very exhausted and you really just don't want to work anymore, and you're just like, it's fine actually. If you just want to go about your life in Singapore and you just want to do your thing and then work hard, and there are a lot of people like that. A lot of queer people who have kind of accepted it. White flag, like, this is, I'm only going to be able to afford an HDB at 35 years old. That's the only time, because otherwise I can't get married and apply for a BTO like everyone else. So I'm just going to save all my money, renounce my citizenship so I can actually take out money from my CPF account and then go to San Francisco where I can be myself. There are a lot of people who are like that, and they have, and I'm happy for them if they're able to do that, and that's what they want, right? There are also a lot of us who cannot do that. Who don't have the financial capabilities to do that, right? And they're stuck here. Or there are a lot of people who are themselves and they're queer, but they also are Singaporean, and they're not going to let it shake that love that they have for Singapore, and that's where they belong. What happens to them? So there is a level of like exhaustion that we feel for sure, but it doesn't take away from the fact that this is not right and there needs to be change. So it's a constant reminder to do the work and find your role, even if it's something as simple as just picking up a rock and putting it there. So I try to do that. And when it comes to sort of coming into a conversation and then we feel like, oh, things are actually getting worse is not really sort of the gauge for anything, right? What is worse? I think every conversation is useful. Even if it gets really messy and you get really angry by the end of it, it doesn't mean that you're worse off now. It just means that now you understand how easily triggered you are by these kind of conversations, and you know what your fuse is and where it comes in and where you kind of lose your head and ends up being completely useless. Because if we had just calmed down a little bit, and if you calmed down a little bit, we could have maybe continue on in this conversation. So every little bit helps, I think, but it is exhausting.
So where are things at with the family since that the big bust up and everything?
Where are things with the family? And I won't speak for everyone, but at least for myself and for a few people that we've had on the podcast, it seems that when you come out of the closet, you don't come out once. You come out over and over and over again. And then you have to educate the people that you come out to with what you're coming out with. Right? Because, Mom, I'm gay. It's, oh my God, my child's HIV positive. Oh, my child's going to start cross-dressing. My child's going to go to Geylang. My child's going to work at Changi. It's like all these things of what does gay mean as well. Because if you're trying to understand what created the monster, it's like the years of the AIDS epidemic. There's years of this. And then the negative portrayals of queer people. You only see the stereotype of queer people being a certain way. And then so it's just like, that's what created this person. So now you help them untangle that and also learn to be like, okay, maybe give them a bit of space. Hopefully they want to spend some time to do a bit of research on their own, whether or not they want to. In the case of my parents, I don't know if they've done a lot of research, but it's still tough. And I'm learning to push myself to not blame them so much. Because even after I came out, like I'll watch RuPaul's Drag Race at sort of the kitchen table with my phone. And if my dad comes home, I'll turn it off. Now I'm training myself to just leave it on. Because there was one point where I was watching Queer Eye. And then I think my mom said, why are you watching this style of show? And I was like, what's wrong with this show, Mom? Please back it up. Please back up your case. Like what's wrong with the show? Have you seen the show? Do you even know what this show is about? And there is one episode of Queer Eye that is a little bit similar to what I've gone through with my family, where it's a son who grew up in a church, and there was a very tense situation with his family because of his sexuality. And there's Bobby from the Queer Eye cast in that episode who refuses to step into church because so much of his life was in the church, and then he had to leave leadership because he came out, and it completely devastated him. And it's very, very similar to what I went through. And I've told my mom and dad, like, there's this one episode of Queer Eye that I want to watch with you. And they've held it off. And it's been like a year. And they've still held it off. So there's a part of me that like feels hurt, that feels upset, that wishes that we can all just like engage in these conversations. I'm in a relationship. I've started just openly saying my boyfriend dropped me home. I started saying, can you prepare some extra food for my boyfriend as well? And then my mom like recently said, I can cook for all your friends, Actually, all your friends is no problem, man. I said, yeah, mom, but that's my boyfriend's food that you're putting, okay? All your friends, don't say this type of thing. Don't say this type of thing.
This is
Why?
most
Can be all
passive-aggressive.
friends. So there are all these little things, but I'm also learning to understand that, it is hard for them, and I don't know what they're going through as well and what shapes this term gay for them.
Yep.
And I'm learning to be okay with I came out and I thought everything's done, and it's not. Just like the TED Talk thing.
Sure.
There's still more work to be done. There's still more to experience. Yeah.
I mean, Queer Eye is a great show. I enjoy watching it as well, and even just as a straight man as well.
Yeah.
There are a lot of like good lessons in there. I was like, whoa, this show's actually a lot deeper than I thought it would be.
And the strange sort of statistic is there is a larger audience of straight people, or I think more specifically like straight women who follow RuPaul's Drag Race and Queer Eye than actually queer people.
Yeah.
I actually took a long time before I started watching Queer Eye or RuPaul's Drag Race, because there's also that sense of shame that you feel and that sense of fear as well with content from your own community and what it will bring out of you. So it's true. Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Yeah, I have.
It's good, right?
Yeah, it's good.
Great.
Life
I'm
lessons.
happy. Like this is one great level as well. That you're able to like very confidently
it was
be
fucking
like,
great. I think I started watching Queer Eye in Japan. Like they went to Japan, and that was fucking great because Japan as a country is so interesting. And then they go into people's homes, so you see the Japanese culture. And it was my girlfriend who told me about it, and then I watched it. I was like, oh shit, this is entertaining.
I love that.
But I mean, what you're saying is very true. That the representation of the queer community in mainstream media, is I think is a very big part of where we've made very big steps since like 10 years ago, right? But at this point, what do you think of people when they say like Disney gets a lot of flack for Star Wars, right? Like what the most recent Rian Johnson when he directed Star Wars, and then they started saying, oh, it's like woke and they started to insert like that two of the characters, they were insinuating that they were gay, or were they not, but they never really addressed it either. So what do you think of what do you think when people have these kinds of accusations towards the companies that are trying to maybe in all fairness, maybe they are trying to just have more diversity on screen.
I think Netflix in general has been criticized for that. Where their Netflix culture is to just throw and pepper queer characters, like Salt Bae queer characters all over their shows, right? Like random queer characters show up, right? And their response to that, their actual response to that is they've always existed. Like queer people have always existed in all these different spaces. They just haven't been comfortable enough to just be themselves. And we want to start opening up these characters for that to happen as well. And I love that. And I see how that has helped as well. Even with even my dad, right? He would be on Netflix watching a show that he would not expect a queer character to be in there. And then that person happens to be queer, or they have a girlfriend or a boyfriend of the same gender. And then like he's forced to look at that and forced to be like, oh yeah, actually that guy is a cool character. And learn to untangle some of these only imageries that he's always had for certain people. So that has been helpful. But I think most importantly, representation is very important for our own community. There's an outward level of activism, and there's a huge inward effect as well. Because even for RuPaul's Drag Race, there are a lot of queer people who don't want to watch RuPaul's Drag Race, right? I know a lot of guys who are like, oh, it's too feminine for me, as if it's gonna take away any kind of masculinity from you. And the truth is, I said those things as well, because. And it was not that long ago when I said those things, where I refused to watch RuPaul's Drag Race because I thought, they're very different from me, these drag queens. And if I start watching these shows, what if it makes me more feminine? And what if it unlocks that thing in me? And what if I accidentally start liking, what if I actually start liking drag and I want to try doing it, Or I think if I'm caught watching RuPaul's Drag Race, they're going to think I'm like them. So there's that level as well. And I've learned so much from watching RuPaul's Drag Race. And I now look at drag queens totally different, and I go to drag shows when they have nothing to do with RuPaul's Drag Race as well, and I've learned to like appreciate and understand their art a lot more. I think even with trans visibility, especially as well, right, in Singapore, even as a queer person, you would think everyone's holding hands together and supportive of each other. There's definitely a hierarchy of sort of masculine presenting gay men, followed by feminine, and then where sort of drag queens or trans people lie or lesbians lie. There's a sort of that kind of almost caste system. I know there's a strange kind of analogy to use, right? And there's a lot of self-hate because that's a lot of hate that we've had on ourselves. So we kind of put it onto people around us. Or even if you are gay and there's a lot of hate towards other gay people where it's like, you can't sit with us. Because for the longest time, we have not been part of the group. So now that we have our own sofa, this is going to be our own people who look a certain way or have the same kind of skin color or the same kind of build. So all of us are going to be buff and hot and sexy together. And that's our Instagram, so it's a lot of these shows of representation help our own community to untangle all that. I've learned so much about of trans people from shows like Disclosure and like Orange is the New Black and how important Laverne Cox's character is. So just as a queer person, I'm learning so much already from representation in that decision to have more people represented across the spectrum,
So what about the Singapore space in that area is what you are the most optimistic about? Because just hearing from what you were saying 10 years ago, it sounds like that was a different Singapore. Now, I mean, it's also kudos to people like you who has started a queer podcast.
Thank you.
Who have been very open about your sexuality and showing young people out there that, you can be yourself, you can own it. But what else about the current landscape in Singapore are you optimistic about?
I think in general, people are in Singaporeans are realizing that they have a voice. They've always had a voice, right? They've always had a voice. And as we're using it, I'm hoping that people will also understand their responsibility in using your voice as well. Because you can look real stupid and it's going to be really hard to defend your character when your voice is written out and it's tweeted and it's going to stay that way forever. Not that I don't believe in cancel culture. I believe in rehabilitation. I believe in like I've talked about throughout this whole episode about trying to understand what created this and how we can all improve and get better. Right. I am optimistic that people are starting to realize with saying and then reading the feedback, reflecting and speaking to more people about it, and they're growing and they're changing and their voice starts to they start to hone that voice, So I'm optimistic of that because if like in last year or earlier? No, it was earlier this year, I think, was when that man came into that small SMOL salad joint and he saw the pride flag and he threw it, right? So if that happened maybe 20 years ago, I'm not sure if we would have that conversation so publicly, right? But that is happening now because a lot of people who used to think they were alone in whatever anger they were feeling that this is wrong, now they're actually supported by people who be like, yeah, that's right, that is wrong, and I'm going to stand with you and I'm going to amplify what you just said, right? Where now we can call out all this bullshit. So that makes me optimistic that if I were to walk out and someone throws a slushie at my face, Glee style, and I go to social media and be like, this is what happened and this person called me like a gay slur, I know someone is going to stand with me and I can believe that something can actually happen. That makes me optimistic a little bit. When it comes to representation, I'm not so sure yet.
Okay.
But we are now able to get our resources when we need them, right? If we want to watch a Queer Eye, we'll find a way to watch a Queer Eye. It's on YouTube as well. It's on Facebook, Instagram. We can unfollow one account and follow an activist, and that's it. And we can have positive representation out there. It's readily available for you. So that part makes me optimistic. Another great one is I've been doing a lot of interviews for students for their projects. And I get students who are like, hi, I'm doing my group project is LGBTQ plus representation in Singapore in the media.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're doing that in poly, like in secondary school as well? And he's like, yeah. And like, does your teacher know that you're doing this topic? He's like, yeah, 100%. I'm like,
Oh, wow.
Oh,
wow,
shit, that's
can
cool.
you send me an email and CC your teacher? And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And I'm just like, whoa. Like, and also like from my own school, like Neon Poly as well, and they're doing this as their group project. Like I would have never done this like 10 years ago, when 11, 12 years ago when I was in school. We would have never had the balls to do something like that.
Yeah.
And now you're doing it. So that's a very clear representation that that indication that progress is happening.
So how does all that influence your music? Because I mean, the seed of this podcast came about because you are releasing your next single on 20th August.
Yeah.
Right. And I know, like, just based on your previous album and the name of your next album, which is Sissy. And you mentioned just also it does factor into your music.
Yeah.
So what is this upcoming single about, and what does it reflect about the current space or mind that you're in?
Yeah, I've kind of always used the pronouns that felt comfortable for me. If I'm singing about a guy, I use he, so that was already like a tough thing. I was like, should I use she? But I always stuck to he. And taking it one step further by naming the next album Sissy. And I'm just gonna have fun. I'm gonna do colorful, fun music because that's where I'm at right now in my life. My first album was a lot darker because it was during that period where I was like recovering and healing, and I was exploring all these different things.
It was very. I mean, I remember your music video for Murder, right? Murder.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Was very
gritty.
Yeah, very gritty, very dark. Almost. It seemed almost like there was a
very
kind
angry.
of violence that was being expressed on screen as well.
Yeah, so that was that whole period before I named the album Filthy, because it was about the night and exploring all these different parts of who we are when we hide in the dark, right? Yeah. So that was that album, and this new album is just coming out bright, colorful, but also talking about things that so We Are Done is the new single, right? And that's sort of the thing that I have been saying to some people in my life, which is like, we are done. And it may not be to their faces, but it's just things in my mind where like I have been chasing after this person for so long, and I want this person to just acknowledge me and care about me, and I'm just like, we're done. Like this is not healthy for you. This is not healthy for this person. We're done. So that song is about that. Is about sort of knowing that you cannot be part of this thing because it's just not healthy for you or that person. And it's but the sound, it's colorful, it's fun, it's like Venga Boys, Aqua, bubblegum pop, which is the sound that I miss
I
from
love that. Yeah.
It's just really silly.
90s,
And then last year I released All I Want to Do, which is also a very colorful pop song, but the lyrics are all I want to do is disappear, and it's about that feeling of suicidal ideation where it's like, when I'm in a state where I don't know what I can do and I don't understand the world, I don't understand my feelings. So this person, I just want to disappear. I just want to run away. I want to run from all this because it's very frustrating and exhausting. So that's what I do. So my music's like that. My music's, it's cathartic because I write it from a space of what I'm experiencing. Yeah. And most of it comes from journal entries that I'm writing that I actually then take into like a chorus or a verse. But also it's a bizarre feeling when you are in a state of anxiety, but then you listen to a song that you wrote and you sound so colorful and confident on the song. And then it's like a reminder to yourself that I can be this. Because I was so pumped when I recorded this song. So I can be like that, right? Like, because when you're low, you think this is all you've always been and this is all you'll ever be. And I think music for me has been great as well. To create and then also show myself that you're able to stand up, you're able to sound happy.
Yeah.
And when did you write this song?
We Are Done.
Yeah.
This was a couple of months back, and then I just knew going in that I want the first song to have that 2000s Eurodance vibe, which for some reason it took over the world, and it had the silliest lyrics, and it was so repetitive, but it was so fun,
So catchy.
Yeah.
so catchy. So We Are Done is exactly like that.
I see.
Yeah.
But just wondering about the process of your music and everything. How do you even find time to write or record and all that, given that your full-time gig is as a radio DJ?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you have a host of other commitments, hosting and all that as well. So where does that time to even write music come from?
I do a lot of things,
Yeah.
but I'm also never busy.
Please explain.
Yeah, try to understand what that means.
I'm never busy. I'm a bit of a yes man. Like someone asks me, like, you want to get coffee? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll just move this and move that, and I'll make it work. I like experiencing. Like I just went to the bookstore earlier on at Kinokuniya. I like doing that, and I did the radio show today, and I did an interview as well. I did a bunch of things, and I did this did this podcast. But then I will still have a chunk of time later on for me to just play Mortal Kombat. I when I was in secondary school, there was one friend who was always busy.
Yeah,
and I always wanted to hang out with him, but he was always busy. Maybe he just wanted to blow me off, but I just remember telling myself I don't ever want to be busy. Like I want to do everything, but I want to have enough wiggle room to like randomly go do something. Like if I just want to go to Genki Sushi, I just want to go Genki Sushi and like 1 hour watch a show. And just be by myself, So I always have time. And actually when it comes to writing music and stuff, it happens when like at the most awkward times, when I'm in the shower, I'm singing, or I'm journaling something on the bus, and then I'm like, oh, that actually rhymes, so I could turn this into a song, and then I end up writing a lot of it on the mundane travel, on the bus, on the train. Yeah.
So this is the first of how many songs that are slated? Because it is an album, right?
Yeah. It's a relatively short album. I know it's a 2000 story, but 2000s we had albums that were like 18, 19, 20 songs.
Yeah, man. You
It
get
costs
that
a
one
lot of
CD.
money.
Yeah,
It costs so much money. It costs so much money just to do one song and for it to sound a certain way. You understand, especially if you listen to podcasts, you want your own podcast to sound a certain way, have that certain quality to it. So same thing with music, because I love music so much, I want my song to sound a certain way, have that polish. So I spend a lot of money to make all that happen. And it's not a good investment. Honestly, I watch a lot of Shark Tank. This is called an expensive hobby. Okay, you get barely any money in return, especially now you can't perform. Right? So you're not going to get money back anyway, but you're pumping in money. And then you got to think of like, okay, album artwork, get the photo shoot done for that. And then music video, lyric video, social media campaign, like just for one song.
Oh, that's exhausting.
Okay, so I have the rest of the album, the music production stuff, all done and paid for. I have not recorded my vocals, but I've written half of it, and I'll spend time to be like, okay, let's see if I can save up a little bit of money. Hopefully the AMC stock goes back up.
I see.
And then when it's time, I'll put out something else. I'm pretty chill with my music right now. It's not like anymore, because we did start off with the whole like obsessed with this world and I want to be a part of it, right? But I've also learned to not be shackled to my dreams, because just like understanding the first couple of girls that I had a crush on and be like, oh, they all used to be like long haired Chinese girls because they all look like the anime, or they all look like this. I had these dreams to be in entertainment when I didn't have a lot of friends. I was trying to fit in with everyone else. I didn't want to just be called Bapo, and I wanted to be great at these things. And I just so happened to have some skill set, right? Or some talent, as they say. But I don't want to be shackled to my dreams. Like if tomorrow I just want to like go back to school, or if I want to just start a cafe, and just do coffee stuff. I want to do that, and nothing to do with my dreams, because these dreams I came up with, and I said that this is what I want to do at such a young age, when I didn't understand the world, I didn't understand myself or what I wanted. And then you spend the rest of your life reminding yourself, oh yeah, my goal was to be a pop star hall, so I better be a pop star hall.
So I mean,
You
you're
know?
kind of saying that you're not following like some
No.
fixed release schedule or
No,
album
like,
drop or something.
I'm doing the radio thing. I'm doing the podcast thing. I'm doing
Yeah.
a little bit of everything, but I'm also very free.
So you basically your music will it will keep coming.
Yeah.
It's just that there's no like fixed like
No.
timeline where you're like, okay, I gotta finish this so that I can start
No.
promoting it and all that.
You don't know how long you're gonna be on this earth.
it,
You
got
want to
it.
experience what you want to experience.
Yeah.
And that's
so,
it.
So, listening to your story, I mean, you grew up in a religious family. You came out to a religious family. You grew. I mean, you grew up in the time when Singapore, the LGBTQ plus community was not that open. So what? And now also, like, I mean, you're doing a lot of things, and like what you said, your music right now is an expensive hobby, but yet you still do it. So throughout that, it seems like you're always just pushing through obstacles. So what is that? What is the juice that keeps you going? Or like what is the motivation there?
I don't
Marigold
know.
juice.
Huh? Marigold juice. Yeah, we'd like to thank our sponsor for this. That's the right answer, Joshua.
Yeah. What is the juice?
Because I think that what the sense I get is that it's pretty exhausting to be on your personal front, to be tackling a lot of different things.
And even now, up to now at
Even
home,
up to
sounds
now.
like there's still some.
And I think you're seen also as a face for the activists as well. When they want you to make a statement whenever there's something controversial coming up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, but I'm also not doing a great ton. I think for sure, hands down, people work actually physically labor much harder than I do. I speak, I use my voice, I sing.
Yeah, but sometimes that impact can
Yeah, for
is
sure. So
amplified,
it's
Yeah.
your mental health that you want to be extra careful about, right?
Yeah.
So that's what it is. Like I do music because it makes me happy. I create, it empowers me. Feels great to live that fantasy where I'm a pop star in my mind. Like when I listen to my own music, I'm like a rock star, and I don't have to convince anyone, right? And just as like a 10-year-old Josh is like, yeah, this is me on the song. I'm a fucking badass. I love me, and that's fine. Maybe it's an ego thing.
And
But
then
I did it.
Kanye West does
Yeah,
that too.
but I'm doing it, and I paid for it. Someone else didn't pay. I paid for it, so
Yeah.
I can do that,
Yeah.
right? When it comes to the SG Boys podcast and the conversations that we have, I'm not protesting it. I'm not holding up a sign or anything like that. I'm encouraging each other to share our stories. That's
Yeah.
all I'm doing. I'm sharing my stories. It's a platform where you can use to do that. That's what we do on the podcast. When it comes to the radio show that I host, I talk about entertainment news. I'm having a blast. When it comes to interviews that I do, the juice that gets me going, number one is I'm fans of all these people and I love film and pop culture and all that. So to meet these people is already like a pinch myself moment. But the second bit, the juice that also comes with, honestly, is spirituality. I always pray before every interview. And my prayer interview is always the same, which is I hope that this interview is useful for the person that I'm sitting down with. So if I'm interviewing you, as much as this is great that we're doing this interview, I'm so happy to interview you. I hope this conversation helps you because maybe you needed to hear what you needed to say to me.
Yeah.
Right. And then I hope it helps the person watching this.
Yeah.
So that's all. I just want to be useful. I just want to have a role in this situation. So that's why whenever I'm like, oh, I'm interviewing Ryan Reynolds or Hugh Jackman, as cool as that sounds, honestly, I'm just happy to be in the room. I'm happy to play like a catalyst role, and that's kind of it. And maybe that is all I'm supposed to do in this life. Maybe like 10-year-old Josh who was obsessed with pop culture didn't have to be the mega celebrity. Maybe he just needed to play a role in this and experience and observe all the different nuances. And be like, cool, experience and question things and then reassess and reflect and then live a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, some of the interviews that you've done are some of the more memorable ones that have come out of Singapore, right? Of the
Thank
media
you.
scene and all. So I think definitely you are weaved into the fabric of like our media scene already. And like when we think of those interviews, like which one for you was the most memorable? Actually, that's probably something.
Because I know you
interesting.
interviewed Hugh
Jackman,
Jackman,
right? Yeah.
Patrick Stewart, Rami Malek, Zac Efron, and Zendaya.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've interviewed a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Which is
it's a
crazy.
Real, it's a real skill to walk in a room with these people and their minders and be able to
Given
gather
a
yourself
time limit also,
a very
right?
tight time
Yeah.
limit and still be able to have try to sit down and immediately have like a short quick conversation
Yeah.
and try to get into their brains a little bit. So if anyone is thinking that interviewing is very easy, you just go there and you enjoy free drinks.
No.
It's not.
Yeah,
It's
no.
not. You're probably exhausted from traveling, everything, right?
I can name drop the house down, and as fun as that it actually is, the work that goes into it is ridiculous, because I spend 15 minutes with them, right? Especially if, let's say, it's in London, right? But you don't see the flying there, and then the anxiety in the hotel room trying to figure out my questions, and then in the bathtub running through the questions in my head, waking up at 5 a.m, going for a run to just make sure my energy levels a certain way, thinking about what you're gonna do if something goes wrong, how to handle the people that manage the artists, and them going through your questions and then adding feedback. So there's all this stuff, and then actually passing the interview, uploading it, and getting the reaction from people. So there's a lot of work to it, 100%. Kid Josh is just over the moon, because there are a lot of people that I've met that I thought I would never ever meet in my life. So I'm very, very happy with that. My most memorable one, I think it was, so I did my first big one was Katy Perry. And this was, I'm still new in radio, right? They sent me to Tokyo because we were just talking about Japan, right? And Tokyo is one of those places that I think in the 90s maybe, my parents always told me that Tokyo is very expensive. I think in Singapore it was like Tokyo is very expensive, very expensive. Just go Penang. You know, it was just like Tokyo is very expensive. So I have always dreamt of going to Tokyo as a gamer, anime. I've always wanted to go to Tokyo, and then it's all expenses paid, and you're staying at a fancy hotel. And one of my favorite films is Lost in Translation, which is filmed at the Park Hyatt Hotel. And my interview with Katy Perry is at the Park Hyatt Hotel. So it was all these things lining up. And then I interviewed Katy Perry. I'm given 15 minutes with her. But once I go in colorful. I have a lion's head as a bag. And then I've got like heel boots, platform thingies. And my first thing I tell her is that, your dad's a pastor, my dad's a pastor. And then we instantly connected. And we ended up talking for like 30, 45 minutes.
Wow.
And she ended up sharing with me what she's been going through with this album. And she asked me some feedback, like what song should I do as my next single? And I offered her like a Bollywood movie. And I told her, you should watch Dev Das. For this song, Legendary Lovers, you should watch Dev Das, and you should be Aishwarya Rai, and you should do this. And it was just all like, it was not recorded, but it was just conversations that we were having. And I never expected that. Because I thought it was going to be a tense interview. She may not like me, get the questions and leave. And then I ended up connecting with a person, and I'm just spending time with this person. And then I'm stepping out of it. And then for 3 hours, I'm just like crippled in my hotel room, like what just happened? Right? So it's a scary feeling, but it kind of set the bar for me of, don't go in just to get the scoop or whatever, all the things that I've learned about how it works in journalism. Maybe it works in other areas, but for this bit about interviewing people in their movies and career and stuff, just go and connect with them, hear what they have to say, and that's it. Just find your role. So that was very, very influential for me. And then she wrote on my vinyl, "Never Lose Your Light," and I always, like, that to me is my prized possession from my room. Not because it's Katy Perry, it's just because this was someone who represented being the biggest pop star in the world, and then she's just talking to some guy who just started out on radio, and she wrote "Never Lose Your Light," and I appreciate that. And when I listen to Katy Perry music, I don't think of that moment, because to me it's completely separate. It's a very strange thing, the fantasy of the stage, of the performer, and then you actually meet them. Like, I've interviewed Ryan Reynolds 4 times. Super chill guy who would hang out with the both of you. Actually, he probably would get along better with the two of you than me. Like, he's very, very bro. And Hugh Jackman, you think he's some like action hero guy. He's a music guy. He loves musicals. He's very fun. So there's all these things that you notice about some celebrities, and you're just like, oh yeah, they're actually people, and they're actually here just to promote the movie that they did maybe like 2 years ago, because it took a long time for a movie to come out, and then it's finally out, and now they're here. It's kind of obligation for them to promote the film, and they probably flew in late last night. They're very tired. They just want to get through the interview, so just try to keep it fun for them, make it entertaining for them as well. and then get to know the crew members. And I came from film school, so I understand what the cameraman is doing. I understand what all these different people are doing. I used to do personal assistant stuff as well, so I understand the person who's at the admin side just taking down my names. I know what you're going through. So you then have a level of understanding for everyone's job scope in the room.
So, so I know one question that you asked Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart, and I think a few others as well that I want to ask you now. Like, what I think the question was, when is the last time you felt really happy, but you felt you didn't deserve it? Because I thought, so first of all, I thought those interviews were fucking great, and I know they themselves found it great because I think even Patrick Stewart said, give me one more question because I'm enjoying this or something. And I always thought your questions were cool, and this was a question that I wanted to ask you, before we move on to like the lighthearted part, and never mind, scratch whatever I just said. What's your answer?
No worries. Like, so a lot of the questions come from journal entries, right? So the journal entries that I was already kind of like reflecting on these things in my own life. Or if I'm watching the film and it happens to this question just happens to fall on me. I don't know where it comes from, but it just happens to come to me, and I'll put it down and be like, okay. I haven't answered these questions for myself though, because even though I reflect on these things, I don't usually always have an answer for these things. So when was the last time I was so happy I felt like I didn't deserve it?
You were so happy, but you felt you didn't deserve it.
Well, I feel like so much of my happy moments, I feel like I don't deserve it. Like I was just telling a friend, like the mandatory thing, like how are you, Josh? How have you been? And I'm like, I've been good. I've actually been good. I've been consistently good, and I'm not used to consistently good. I've been used for things messing up. I'm used to not feeling great. I'm used to always slipping up, drama and all that, and like I've been consistently happy, and the happy is, spending time with my boyfriend. We're doing like just watching TV, and it's like, oh, things are just going well. Radio show is going well. Podcast is going well. Everything's going well. And there are no like major peaks. I'm not interviewing any major celebrities right now. I'm not traveling around the world or anything. I'm just, at least for the past year and a half, it's just been like little happy things. So I learned how to cook lap mu. It's Thai food. Love Thai food. I learned how to cook this dish. And it's just, I feel happy. And I had to remind myself that I should try to get used to this. I should try to feel like I deserve this, because a lot of the big celebrity things happened before. And I thought, okay, that was happy, right? Because I did this big thing, and I played a role and it came out and it actually was appreciated by people and it affected my career in a great way. So now I deserve to be happy because I actually did the work. And for the past year and a half, everything has just been going really smooth. And do I deserve this? Is this like a precursor to something terrible that's about to happen? So I've been finding it harder for me to just appreciate the everyday constant happy that I'm not used to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Especially I think during COVID, when we've not had a chance to sort of bookmark our day, our year with, I went to this holiday, I went to that holiday. It just feels like a constant kind of grind. Yeah. And if you don't try and appreciate the ups and downs a little bit, you'll just feel like you're just coasting through life, right? Yeah.
That's a great point, because it is harder to feel like you earned your happiness or your rest even, right? Where you are able to get 7 hours of sleep and you feel like you deserve it. Yeah. But when you feel like you're kind of cooped up at home or you haven't had a lot of big exciting things, you feel like, am I just lacking off?
Exactly.
So that's where I'm at. I'm learning to just be like, this is how it should be.
It's like your base, it's like a solid base.
Yeah.
That is great, man. Cool. And
do you guys feel like you're at that stage where you're like able to cruise control and let go of the wheel for a while?
For me, it's a bit easier because I had my son came to the world in the last year, pretty much, and every morning you wake up and you're like, okay, he's too good for this. I don't deserve this goodness, So that's what you feel when you see your kid, just smiling at you every day.
And then he sees a message from me and he's like,
I see a message of her.
Shit.
This idiot didn't save the file and now I have to go back to my computer. So that's a high point, and now that
so I balance out his high points as a dad.
So
It's one of those things that I'm learning to come to terms with, that I'll probably never have a son. Like, I cannot imagine how stressful, but also like just how incredible that must feel.
I mean, I can see a change in Terrence for the better. As much as I shit on him, I can see the change. And yeah, it's in some way, I think to answer your question, I think for me, I'm getting used to it. Because last year was rough for the industry with some network we made the TV show for and all. But now, I guess, it's finding that how you say that steady state lah. And it's like the waves are still up and down and all, but finding a steady state is I'm closer to that now than I was a year before lah. A lot closer. So, but it's still a lot more to sort out lah.
I think in like 10, 20 years time, we're all gonna look back at this period and then be like, holy shit, like mental health for everyone during this period was like really affected lah. But no, we never realized that it would be such a big deal. People just staying at home.
I mean,
not being able to travel.
I hope we all come out of it stronger. Because now, I mean, if you're finding steady state in the rough seas, hopefully when things go back to normal, we'll be like, oh shit, we went through that. Like
I'm scared of what that's gonna be like.
Oh really?
When you're going at like 200 miles per hour for so long, and then all of a sudden you screech halt. Comes a screeching halt, right? When this has been the new normal for a while, and that new normal concept scares me, because I'm like, what happens the day Singapore says, okay, y'all can fly to wherever you want?
I mean, to be honest, like when we opened up, I did feel like, oh fuck, because there's the morbid thing about, say, circuit breaker is like everyone is going through the same thing. And the moment things open up and then you see that whole variety, I feel that unease too. I think it's helped that it has been gradual, but I remember when circuit breaker ended, I did feel like, oh fuck, everybody's life is gonna get back to normal, and media still was kind of getting fucked over. So it felt like, oh shit, people are gonna start going back to normal, and where's media going to be? So I get what you mean, like that certain like, what is it going to look like?
It's going to be like, I open up Instagram and then Muna is like on a sailboat somewhere in
that's right.
Costa Rica.
I mean, even my
I wish I was there.
No, I mean, in some way also, like my girlfriend is really talking, okay, when are we going to travel next? And I was like, oh shit, I haven't had to think about travel plans for a long time. And it was kind of liberating, like, okay. But then now I'm like, oh yeah, okay. We can travel. And that's where it's almost like, you use an iPhone. It's very little options, but it simplifies things. Now life is going towards Android lah. Life has been iPhone for the past year.
You can randomly download some random app and install it.
You can jailbreak this, you can move this, and I'm like, okay, that's I guess inevitable.
Yeah.
But that's why I felt very lucky to have a son in the last year.
Yeah, because
I'll be like, oh, I can't travel anymore. Wait, no one can travel anymore.
Yeah, no, and
I can't go out anymore. Oh, no one can go out anymore.
You're probably spending more time with your kid than dads have spent
in history.
Pandemic babies.
Pandemic babies. Your baby's gonna come out like so solid. And yeah.
Or the other way lah. Or just like
fuck you, dad. Fuck you, dad. Get away, dad. I had enough of you.
I have a question. Do you feel like you're spending more or spending less?
That's a great question.
While in this pandemic, because you talk about the whole travel bit, right? Because we used to spend a lot of money. The average Singaporean spends a lot of money, traveling to Bangkok, Bali, Taiwan, Tokyo, and all that, right? So now that we haven't been able to travel, I mean, we're supposedly we saved a lot of money from that, right? But obviously we funneled that money to other things, lah.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you're spending more? Or saving?
I feel I'm spending less, but that is also a large reason for that. It's because I moved in with my girlfriend, and things like with food and all that. So she loves to cook. So cooking a lot more at home is saving us a lot of money from going out. And I think even the clothes and all that, I feel like, okay, I haven't need to get new clothes, and that whole thing is prolonging. So I think overall I'm spending less.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you?
I feel like I'm way spending more.
Way more. Online shopping.
Wait, no. So like I don't do the online shopping thing, but actually, so the cooking thing is what I spend a lot of money on, because I'm also not a great cook. I'm trying to be a good cook. But you spend so much money, like $30 for a dish that you could have bought for $10, and then you get it wrong.
You're cooking for one or two people.
So I do that, and I'm also cabbing everywhere.
Yes.
I'm cabbing everywhere, so a lot of my money is going to
especially when you compare anything to Chai Peng. You're like, fuck, I could have spent $4 and gotten an amazing meal. Especially like near our office is the best fucking Chai Peng in the world. We can share the deets with you later.
Okay. And then also you're buying the gaming chair.
Exactly,
You're buying the random lamp that you saw on Instagram just because it'll give the aesthetic to your room a bit.
Yeah.
You know, I bought like a bunch of fake plants from IKEA for my room.
Yeah.
So I thought I could look at the plants and everything. They're fake plants. They don't do anything. They really don't. And then I put them in a corner of the room where there's no sunlight also. So it's just very weird. Yeah.
There are fake plants right in front of you right now.
Exactly. Yeah. No, for me, it's been. You take aside the fact that I have to spend more on my child and all that, but I legitimately have a reason to buy like toys now because my kid. I need to buy that train set for him, even though it's for like 4-year-old kids. He's not 4 yet, but I just need to have like a hobby for myself at home. And I tell myself I'm doing it for the kid.
So they actually have kids, like toy stuff for kids still?
Yeah, like toy trains.
Because I've always been curious, because like the whole Toys R Us and the whole like toy industry has been in this rough state
George,
for a
his
while.
kid is 1 year old and he's getting train sets. So it's obviously for him. It's not for his kid.
It's got batteries and you use screwdrivers. And
I
all
thought
that.
it would be like, they'll just download the app.
No.
like,
I mean, so
You
there's-
want that tactile. You want
the
that tactile.
tactile. So you try to keep devices away from kids until they're like 3 or 4.
Okay.
if you can, because it's not good for their eyes. So you buy train sets for them to just look at while daddy plays with it.
It's like he was really planning like, okay, he want to build this train system for Christmas. And I'm like, hey, fuck you, like your kid is not going to
He's not walking yet.
to appreciate that.
oh my
He just wants to
gosh.
eat the train. But I'm like, okay, yeah.
That's so cool. Like the full on like.
Yeah. I'm trying to do like a winter wonderland thingy that will go around the tree and everything.
Like Dream Dad. It's so nerdy, but it's like.
And then I'm like buying the lights and all that, the LEDs that you can set up, and they'll and then the bell rings every time the train passes.
I mean, that's why between the two of us, he handles more of the tech stuff because he loves this sort of stuff.
I'm
Like
sure
the-
you appreciate
the
all this
gadgets.
as well, right? It's
yeah,
like your own
yeah.
little like HQ.
Yeah, universal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, cool. So I mean, how we always end off our podcast is with this little segment called One SHIOK Thing.
Okay.
And it's where each of us just share one thing that we have come across from the past few days that hopefully can be shared with our audience. So not so much like something someone cooked for you, but maybe like a link or an article or a video or something that you saw. So we will go first to give you a bit of a heads up. So Terrence, you wanna kick things off?
I mean, ours is my One SHIOK thing is kind of a plug for our own show as well. I mean, we produced our first Mandarin TV series.
Oh, okay.
Last year, and it wasn't really a TV series; it was a web series. But I think the network liked it so much they asked us to piece it together as a full tele movie, and they're showing it tonight actually on Channel 5.
Hey.
It's a Mandarin show being shown on Channel 5
Tonight,
for 1 hour.
17th August.
17th August, yeah,
Yeah.
Tuesday 17th August
Tuesday,
at 9:30
17th
p.m. And it's going to be on TV. I mean, it stars Noah Yap and Jasmine Sim. Also trying out a Chinese. I mean, for Noah, it's like his first big like Chinese role as well. So it's just
And he's the lead for it as well.
He's the lead, yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, for us, I mean, I think it's just I think we're gonna just gather with some friends to watch it tonight as well, because it's like we talked about celebrating the small things over the last year, right? So for us, it's just a little bit of a milestone that this is finally hitting television.
Yeah,
We're
especially
working for so
because
long on
I
it.
don't speak Chinese. Terence's Chinese is shit, and yet
Yeah.
we made a Chinese series lah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we made a Tamil
TV
show,
pilot, yeah.
even though you also don't.
I also don't speak Tamil.
You played a deaf mute character
Yeah,
in
correct.
the
Yeah,
show.
because I don't know how to speak Tamil. But we made that as well. So it's showing today, but also another day, right?
No, just today. For the
On-
full tele movie experience, it's only tonight on
Okay,
Channel
okay.
5 at 9:30 p.m.
And then where will it go after?
It's already on Me Watch. It's been on Me
Okay.
Watch for the last 4 or 5 months.
So that means this podcast has to come out before like 9 p.m. tonight.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And who's working on that?
Terrence!
Yeah. It will be out. It will be out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my One SHIOK thing is this recent this animated show I recently started watching on Netflix called Kipo and the Master Kipo and what's the name? Kipo and the
Wait, I thought
Monsters of the Universe or something.
Weren't you just talking about another animated show?
Yeah,
on
now
Amazon
I'm
Prime?
on animated binge.
Okay.
Because we're also working on a concept of an animated show lah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So Kipo and The Age of Wonder Beasts. So it's one of the shows that I never heard anything about. But on Netflix, while I was looking, it's essentially set in this world where there's people who live beneath the surface and people who live above the surface. And the main character is a girl who gets pushed to the surface after a flooding underground lah. And I think it's been a few hundred years since humans lived on the surface, so you get all these huge ass beasts, and she kind of gets her own motley crew of people who help her find her way home lah. And it's kind of like a comedy action, but with dope music lah. Like I love a show with good music. So yeah, it's been quite a nice surprise because I watched it having no expectations. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Where is it on? Which
on
platform?
Netflix. Yeah, Netflix.
Okay. What's the title again?
Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beasts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
It's
I never
English?
heard of it. Yeah, it's English.
Oh, okay.
And it's made by DreamWorks, I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
it's a TV show or?
it's a TV show. It's a TV
okay,
series.
series. I
Yeah,
see.
It's pretty dope.
Interesting.
Yep. Cool. So Joshua.
Simon.
I
In the
have,
hot seat.
I have a new single that comes out on August 20th. In the time of the recording, it's this Friday. It's called We Are Done. It'll be out on Spotify, Apple Music. Enjoy the song. It's a fun, fierce club anthem that is like you have to sashay to it. Like you have to walk. It demands cardio.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just a fun song. Just enjoy it.
And I'm guessing you'll announce it on all your social media platforms.
Yeah. So it comes out this Friday. It'll be fun.
Music video as well?
No,
Not yet?
no.
Okay,
I have a music video in mind, but it costs money.
Got it.
So I won't be able to afford that as of right now. But just enjoy the song. I think it's pretty visual already when you listen to it.
So where can people find you? Because you do a lot of things.
Yeah.
But maybe just give a shout out to your social media profiles, any websites or.
Sure. My music's on Spotify and Apple Music. Just search Joshua Simon. I'm on Instagram at Joshua Simon XL. I'm on YouTube. Just type Joshua Simon. I'm on Wikipedia. Just
Type
Joshua Simon. Cool. And also, other cool things to share. They recently discovered a pterosaur. It's kind of like a pterodactyl. It's like the closest to like an actual dragon that flew over Australia like 150 million years ago.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I like all some random nerdy things.
Oh,
Wait,
I
you-
fucking love dinosaurs.
Sorry, just one more thing.
Yeah.
You had said you have your podcast.
Oh yeah,
as well.
I'm so bad at this PR thing. Oh yeah, by the way, everyone.
Yeah.
I've got a podcast. The SG Boys podcast. It's an LGBTQ plus themed podcast recorded here in Singapore. It's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We cover topics like coming out, loneliness, being queer in the military in Singapore. We've also had special guests from Melanie C from the Spice Girls, also St. Vincent, Lauv, Conan Gray. Go check it out. We have 2 seasons out now, and we'll be launching season 3 very soon. The SG Boys.
Awesome. Cool. All
Also,
right.
a lady found a massive rock. What can I say?
Oh no, then another
In her
joke thing. Oh,
backyard.
you're on a roll. Yeah, okay, complete that thought.
Did you
complete
know
thought.
that ants stretch in the morning when they wake up?
Oh, really?
They sleep?
I'm sure. At some point, they just stop moving, right? Have you ever seen an ant that just stop moving and chilling for a while?
I don't know, because fish sleep with half a brain at a time. So they're always on high alert.
Ah,
Yeah. Yeah.
so they're just like,
Yeah, that's why they're
just
like,
like,
they just know how to, like, I mean, they kind of need to stay alert lah, right? 'Cause
Right.
they don't have like a cave that they can go into.
Nemo sleeps, no?
Nemo is a TV show, Joshua. It's not real. Fish don't actually talk.
What about Santa? Don't tell me he's not real too.
Cool, man, dude. Thank you so much for coming on our
you.
podcast.
Yeah.
I
Wishing
felt like
you
we
all
talked
the
for
best.
like 4 hours or something.
Oh no, I think
No,
it was about
hour and a half.
hour and a half.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Covered so many things.
No,
Yeah,
that's why I
exactly.
love
It was
it,
fucking
yes.
great, man. Cool. All right. Thank you so much, and we will talk to y'all soon.